All right, section 7.2. We're actually going to start with number 2, then 3, and then go back to number 1. Okay? We're talking about having symmetry in some functions. Okay? So if you're symmetric with the y-axis, that means this side of the y would be a mirror image of this side of the y. So if you're looking at this, or in other words, if you folded this graph on this y-axis, one side would come and lay on top of the other. So this number 2 would be symmetrical with the y-axis. On number 3, so looking at this one, this is my x-axis. This side of the x-axis is a mirror image of this side of the x-axis. Or in other words, if I folded this graph on the x-axis, this part of the graph would come and lie on top of this part. So this one is symmetrical with the x-axis. So yes, it is symmetrical with the x, but it's not symmetrical with the y. It has nothing to do with the y-axis. Here's my y-axis. If you folded it on that, there's nothing over here for it to be symmetrical with. Okay? And it's also not symmetrical with the origin. To be symmetrical with the origin, you need to be symmetrical with the x and the y. Now, back up to number 1. In order to be symmetrical with the origin, you would have to be symmetrical with the x and the y, which means if you folded it on the y and then folded it on the x, then this side of the graph would lie on this side of the graph. Another way to think about it is if you rotated this side of the graph and you rotated it 180 degrees, which means you rotated it to here and then over to here. Okay, and again, it's hard to maybe visualize this, but if you rotated this graph this way and then this way, or 180 degrees, or if you folded it on the y to make it come over here, and then folded it again on the x, that would flip it up to this one, which means it would actually lie on this side of the graph. So that's why that is symmetrical with the origin. Now, if you are symmetrical with the origin, that is called being an odd function. If you are symmetrical with the y-axis, then you are an even function. Okay, if you're symmetrical with the x, it doesn't have any kind of special function, even or odd. Just symmetrical with the origin is odd. Symmetrical with the symmetrical with the y-axis is even, which answers these last 2 questions. If you're looking at number 4, determine if it's even, odd, or neither. Well, here's my y-axis. This side of the y is a mirror image of this side of the y, which means this is an even function. And then the last one, number 5. Let's see. I need to determine whether it's symmetrical to the y-axis. So let's see. Here's my y-axis. If I folded it on top, and put this side over here, it would actually, this right here, would come and be down here. It would be the opposite of this. It would look like this. But then if I folded it again, it would actually flip it to this side. Or in other words, if I rotated this side of the graph, this part right here, if I rotated it 180 degrees, which means here and then here, it would actually lie on top of this side of the graph, which means it is symmetrical to the origin, which means it is an odd function.